justice was supposed to be blind. But on the morning of November 8, 1978, in the Superior Court of Los Angeles County, Bob Marley would discover that some judges saw color before they saw truth. When Judge Harold Whitmore refused to allow Bob to testify in his friend's civil rights case, claiming he wouldn't accept testimony from that type of person, Bob would deliver a speech about justice that would not only change the outcome of the trial, but force an entire courtroom to confront the racism embedded in America's legal system. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell, because we uncover the hidden gems that shaped the legends we know today. Superior Court of Los Angeles County, Courtroom 4B, 9:30 a.m. The courtroom was packed with observers, journalists, and supporters for what had become one of the most closely watched civil rights cases in California. Marcus Williams, a 34-year-old black construction worker, was suing the Los Angeles Police Department for wrongful arrest, police brutality, and violation of his constitutional rights. The case had gained national attention because it involved multiple witnesses, video evidence, and clear documentation of police misconduct. Marcus had been brutally beaten by 3 officers who claimed he was resisting arrest for a crime he didn't commit. The beating had left Marcus hospitalized for 2 weeks with broken ribs, a concussion, and permanent nerve damage in his left arm. But Marcus had something most police brutality victims didn't have: a famous witness who had seen everything. Bob Marley had been walking to his car after a recording session at a nearby studio when he witnessed the entire incident. He saw the police stop Marcus for no apparent reason, saw them escalate the situation when Marcus asked why he was being detained, and saw them beat him unconscious while Marcus was already on the ground, hands visible and offering no resistance. Bob had immediately called for help and later provided a detailed statement to investigators. His testimony was crucial to Marcus's case because Bob was a credible witness with no criminal record and no reason to lie. His celebrity status also meant the case received media attention it might not have otherwise gotten. Marcus's attorney, David Chen, had been preparing for this moment for months. Bob's testimony could make the difference between justice and another police officer walking free. But there was a problem nobody had anticipated: Judge Harold Whitmore. Whitmore was a 61-year-old judge who had been on the bench for 18 years. He was known for his strict courtroom, his conservative interpretations of the law, and his barely concealed belief that civil rights cases were frivolous lawsuits designed to attack law enforcement. When Chen called Bob Marley as his next witness, Whitmore's expression immediately changed. "Your Honor," Chen announced, "the plaintiff calls Robert Marley to the stand." Bob stood from the gallery and began walking toward the witness stand. He was dressed respectfully in a dark suit, his dreadlocks neatly tied back, carrying himself with the dignity befitting the serious nature of the proceedings. "Objection," called out District Attorney Patricia Wells, representing the police department. "On what grounds?" Judge Whitmore asked. "Your Honor, this witness lacks credibility due to his lifestyle and known associations with illegal substances." Chen stood immediately. "Your Honor, Mr. Marley has no criminal record and is a respected international musician. The prosecution is making unfounded character attacks." Judge Whitmore studied Bob, who was now standing in front of the witness stand, waiting to be sworn in. "Approach the bench," Whitmore said to both attorneys. At the bench, speaking in low tones that the courtroom couldn't hear, Whitmore addressed both lawyers. "Counselor Chen, I'm not comfortable allowing this witness to testify." "Your Honor, on what legal basis?" "Mr. Marley was present during the incident and can provide crucial eyewitness testimony." "Look at him," Whitmore said, glancing toward Bob. "The hair, the appearance, the associations. This type of person is not credible in my courtroom." Chen was stunned. "Your Honor, are you rejecting a witness based on his race and appearance?" I'm rejecting a witness based on credibility concerns. What specific credibility concerns? Mr. Marley has no criminal history. His lifestyle speaks for itself. Musicians like him are associated with drugs, anti-authority attitudes, unreliable behavior. I won't have this courtroom turned into a circus. Bob, still standing at the witness stand, couldn't hear the exact words, but he could sense what was happening. The body language, the glances in his direction, the obvious tension. He understood he was being judged not for what he had witnessed, but for who he was. Chen returned to his table, his face red with anger and frustration. Your Honor, the defense requests that Mr. Marley be allowed to testify. He is a material witness to the alleged police misconduct. Request denied, Whitmore said loudly enough for the entire courtroom to hear. This witness is not suitable for these proceedings. A murmur of confusion and anger rippled through the courtroom. Many of the observers were civil rights supporters who understood exactly what was happening. Bob, still standing at the witness stand, spoke quietly but clearly. Your Honor, may I ask why I'm not suitable? Whitmore looked annoyed. You may return to your seat, Mr. Marley. Your testimony is not required. But Bob didn't move. Your Honor, I was present when Mr. Williams was beaten. I saw what happened to him. Don't you want to hear the truth about what occurred? I've made my decision. Please return to your seat. Bob looked at Marcus, who was sitting at the plaintiff's table with his head in his hands, realizing his best witness was being dismissed without explanation. Your Honor, Bob said, his voice growing stronger. May I ask what makes a person suitable to tell the truth in a court of law? Whitmore's patience was wearing thin. Mr. Marley, I will hold you in contempt if you don't return to your seat immediately. Bob remained standing. Your Honor, I'm trying to understand the law. What are the legal requirements for a witness to testify about what they saw with their own eyes? Chen stood up. Your Honor, Mr. Marley is asking a legitimate question about witness qualifications under the law. Whitmore realized he was being backed into a corner. If he continued to refuse Bob's testimony without legal basis, it could become grounds for appeal. A witness must be credible, reliable, and of good character, Whitmore said stiffly. Your Honor, Bob replied calmly, I have no criminal record. I have never been arrested. I have no pending legal issues. I am a tax-paying citizen and a legal permanent resident of the United States. What specific aspect of my character disqualifies me from telling this court what I witnessed? The courtroom was completely silent. Everyone understood this was about more than one witness or one case. Whitmore's face was reddening. Your lifestyle choices and public associations raise questions about your reliability. What lifestyle choices, Your Honor? Your music promotes anti-authority attitudes and substance use. Bob's response was immediate and powerful. Your Honor, my music promotes love, unity, and equal justice under law. The same principles this courtroom is supposed to uphold. That's enough. Your Honor, Bob continued, his voice calm but unwavering. I came here today because I believe in justice. I believe that when someone is beaten by police officers while offering no resistance, the truth should be told, regardless of who witnessed it. The courtroom was spellbound. This was not typical courtroom procedure, but everyone sensed they were witnessing something historic. Mr. Williams was walking home from work, Bob continued, when 3 officers stopped him for no reason other than the color of his skin. When he asked why he was being detained, which is his constitutional right, they threw him to the ground and beat him unconscious. Mr. Marley, stop speaking. I watched those officers take turns kicking a man who was already down, already bleeding, already begging them to stop. And now I'm being told that my testimony about this injustice is not welcome because of the way I look, the music I make, and the culture I represent. Whitmore was furious. Security, remove this man. But Bob's next words stopped everyone in the room. Your Honor, what you're doing right now, Rejecting my testimony based on my appearance and assumptions about my character is exactly what those police officers did to Mr. Williams. You're both using your power to deny basic rights to people who don't look like you think they should. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Some observers began clapping, but Chen quickly gestured for quiet. "Your Honor," Bob said, his voice now carrying the moral authority that had made him a global icon. "This courtroom represents the promise that in America, justice is supposed to be equal. That truth matters more than prejudice. That right matters more than might." Whitmore was silent now, caught between his prejudices and the undeniable logic of Bob's words. "But if you can reject my testimony simply because you don't like my hair, my music, or my culture, then this isn't a court of justice. This is just another place where some people's truth matters more than others' truth." Bob paused, looking directly at Judge Whitmore. "Your Honor, Mr. Williams was beaten because those officers decided he didn't belong in their neighborhood. Now you're deciding I don't belong in your courtroom. Different setting, same prejudice, same injustice." The silence in the courtroom was profound. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, caught up in the moment. "Justice isn't supposed to have a color, Your Honor. Truth isn't supposed to have a culture. And if a court of law can't recognize that, then where can justice be found?" Bob looked at Marcus, then back at the judge. "I didn't choose to witness what happened to Mr. Williams, but I did choose to come here today to tell the truth about it. Because that's what justice requires. Not perfect witnesses, not convenient witnesses, just truthful witnesses." Judge Whitmore sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. The entire courtroom waited. Finally, Whitmore spoke, his voice subdued. "Mr. Marley, please approach the witness stand." As Bob walked to the witness stand, the courtroom remained completely silent. The bailiff administered the oath, and Bob placed his hand on the Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," Bob said clearly. When Bob's testimony concluded, Judge Whitmore addressed him directly. "Mr. Marley, thank you for your testimony. Your observations were clear, detailed, and helpful to the court." As Bob left the witness stand, several jury members nodded in respect, and many observers in the gallery began applauding until Whitmore called for order. The trial concluded 3 days later. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding in favor of Marcus Williams on all counts. They awarded him $2.3 million in damages and recommended criminal charges against the 3 officers involved. But the real impact of Bob's testimony extended far beyond one case. Video footage of his exchange with Judge Whitmore was broadcast on national television and became a defining moment in the conversation about racial bias in the justice system. Legal scholars began studying the incident as an example of how unconscious bias affects judicial proceedings. Several law schools added the case to their curricula as a teaching tool about ensuring fair trials. Judge Whitmore faced intense scrutiny following the trial. An investigation by the California Judicial Review Board found evidence of bias in several of his previous rulings. Rather than face formal discipline, Whitmore chose to retire early. In his retirement statement, Whitmore wrote, "My encounter with Mr. Marley taught me that justice requires judges to examine their own prejudices as carefully as they examine the evidence before them. I failed in that responsibility, and I hope other judges will learn from my mistake." Marcus Williams used part of his settlement to establish a legal aid foundation providing free representation for victims of police brutality. The foundation's first office featured a framed photo of Bob at the witness stand with the caption, "Truth has no color. Justice has no culture." Bob never spoke publicly about the trial in detail, but in interviews he would sometimes reference the importance of standing up for justice even in formal, intimidating settings. "The courtroom that day taught me that music and law are similar. They both work best when they serve truth instead of power," Bob said in a 1979 interview. The case became known as Williams versus LAPD, but legal historians often refer to it as the Bob Marley testimony because of the unique way Bob transformed a moment of judicial bias into a lesson about equal justice. Today, the California Judicial College includes training on implicit bias that references Bob's testimony as an example of how witnesses can be unfairly evaluated based on appearance and cultural assumptions, rather than credibility and character. The Williams case led to policy changes in police training and judicial education throughout California. Bob's words about justice having no color became part of the judicial oath that many California judges now recite when they're sworn in. Marcus Williams, now 80 years old, still speaks at legal conferences about the importance of courageous witnesses. He always begins his talks with the same story about the reggae superstar who could have walked away, but instead chose to stand up for justice. Bob Marley saved my case, Marcus tells audiences. But more than that, he reminded a courtroom full of lawyers and a judge that justice only works when everyone, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, has an equal right to tell their truth.